Well, good evening and welcome back to the Seasiders podcast Friday night preview show. It's Hull City versus Blackpool on Saturday, the 16th of Jan 2021. And tonight we do have a special guest alongside our regular co-host, Tom Main, who I bring in first. Tom, first of all, welcome back to the show. How are things going?
Yeah, good evening. Yeah, very good. Thank you.
We've also got, as I said, a special guest, the man himself behind the famous bird celebration. It's Ben Burgess. Ben, welcome to the Friday night preview show.
Good evening. Hope you're all well.
Yeah, we're all well. And I'm going to start off the show, Ben, by asking, where did that celebration come from? The famous Flappy Bird that turned into an app. I don't know if you're behind the app, but...
Well, I think it came from spending too much time in a hotel with all the new players. I think when you sign for a new club, you generally you put in a hotel before you find somewhere. And at that time, it was great actually. There was like Andy Morrell, Klaus Jorgensen, Carl Dickinson, Cy Gillett. We just used to hang around all the time, like in each other's rooms, just playing PlayStation, whatever. We're just together all the time. So it was brilliant. And it was just one of those times we just sat there saying, "Oh, what should we do? Do we score?" And then just sort of, I don't know. I've had some strange celebrations in my time. Like I once used my shin pad as a mobile phone when mobile phones were still coming out. Like, it wasn't great, but I don't know. I can't remember if it was me or Cy Gillett that said to do it, and it just took off. It was brilliant. I used to love seeing the fans doing it. It was. It was fantastic. I still see people doing it now, and like the kids I teach at school, sometimes the parents will say, "Do the Birdman," and I'm
like, that celebration literally took off.
Yeah, it literally took off. Shame I didn't do it enough, but
what, 23 times goals scored for Blackpool, plenty of occasions. But what's it like as a footballer, Ben, when you score that goal? I guess there's no feeling like it as a professional footballer to score a goal, whether it's a tap-in or the goal against Doncaster, which you scored, and Charlton, which we'll come on to later. But what is that feeling like as a professional footballer?
It's hard to describe, really, and that'll be one of the reasons why a lot of professional footballers get depression when they finish, because you just can't recreate those moments, and you just got to sort of enjoy it when you can. But yeah, it is just unbelievable. It's like a sort of out of body experience where you score and then everyone's celebrating. It's just brilliant, and it is hard to describe, but it's one of those things where a lot of things in life you really look forward to doing it, and then when you do it, it's always like, oh. Or at least that's what my wife says. No, but with a goal, it's just as good when you've actually scored it, when you've arrived and you've done it. It's an amazing feeling, and just to make so many people happy. There's not often I do that. That's for sure.
I guess me and Tom have maybe had the same feeling in a park with a man and his dog there with the knee slide celebration, but nothing like.
No, that's exactly the same though. It's still the same feeling. Like, it's great when there's more people watching, but it's still the same. Both my daughter and my son both play. Like when they score, I get the same feeling for them, and it's just that's football. It doesn't matter what level you play at. You're still there. You're still doing it. You still get those feelings.
A few comments coming in. Tim Fielding saying, "Evening everyone, and welcome to Ben." John Aspinall says goal against Charlton, which we'll come to later. Foot like a traction engine.
Yeah,
I had to get Partridge in there, didn't I? Been doing it all evening, to be fair. But fans, some of the questions. Bit of a funny one here from John. He says, "How does scoring compare to get the kids? Sorry, how does scoring a goal compare to get the kids to get their sums correct? Obviously, teacher versus scoring a goal. I'm not sure what he means by that."
It's a lot easier to score a goal. It's that different high, and like I mentioned previously, it's a feeling that can't be recreated. So many footballers struggle with it. So many footballers struggle with life after football because you just can't get that feeling. And I actually love doing my job, my teacher job. Most teachers spend their life complaining about something, but I enjoy it, and I love helping the kids. But it's not the same as scoring a goal, but it's good in a different way.
Well, we'll come back to a little bit on that when we kind of go for your career and post football. in that. Just a question from Gareth before we move on. He says, does Ben regret not staying for the Premier League season, or was first team football more important for you? I'll put you in another spot with that one.
Fantastic question. I think I wouldn't do anything if I just thought about all of the opportunities I've missed out on and things. I'm going to start crying in a minute. No, obviously, yeah, Notts County was an absolutely dreadful decision, but at the time, it seemed like the right thing to do. Blackpool, Ian Holloway said he wanted me to stay, but then he disappeared for the summer. Obviously, the chairman wasn't forthcoming in offering me a contract, Carl Oyston. So I was stuck, really. I knew I was getting towards the end of my career. Notts County, Craig Short was manager, who I was with at Blackburn in the reserves, and I knew he was a really good guy. He convinced me, said, "Oh, it's going to be brilliant. We're going to do this," and yeah. So I decided to sign for Notts County, and yeah, I always think it could have been, or I could have sat on the bench and not done anything for Blackpool. But I can't stand, and it's probably to my detriment, being someone who's not involved and who doesn't contribute, and I hate that. And the thought of just hanging around and not contributing at Blackpool, it wouldn't have been good for me. I wouldn't have liked it, and I just felt like it was the right move. But in the end, I didn't contribute much at Notts County. But yeah, it was just. I've got a lot of stories about Notts County, at least. But yeah, it was a very bad decision. We moved to Nottingham, hated it. My wife hated it. Ended up moving back, and in my second year at Notts County, we ended up moving back to Lytham. And in my second year at Notts County, I used to drive every morning from Lytham.
Wow.
So and it used to be 280 miles a day.
Wow.
I used to be like the wooden man when I used to get out my car. But yeah, it was crazy times. But yeah, I do regret it, but it was one of those things that I did what I thought was best, sort of from a family, from a future. I knew I didn't have long left in football, so it was what it was.
You initially started your career at Blackburn. Obviously, didn't spend too long playing for them. You went out on loan quite a lot, a couple of successful spells. Tell us how you sort of started off your football career at Blackburn. How did you sort of initially sign for them?
Well, I was at Everton from 14 to 16, and they wanted me to sign. It was like a YTS in those days, YTS then professional contract. But then Blackburn sort of rang me, and Blackburn said, "Oh, come and have a look at our facilities. They've just got a new training ground. It's really nice at Brockhall, it's called." So I went down with my mum and dad, and it's just everything. Everything about it seemed right. All the players stay sort of together on the training ground. It just ticked so many boxes, and I knew the coach was really good. He tried to sign me at Wolves when I was 13 or 14. So I just decided that sort of, and my mum and dad were impressed with them. So we just decided to sign for Blackburn, and I think they had to pay some compensation, which made me an absolute legend at school, because I think it might have been in like a little tidbit in the Sun or something. Ben Burgess signed for Blackburn for 100 grand or something like that. And like, how much do you get of it? I'm like, nothing. Yeah, so I started at Blackburn. It was brilliant, and I really enjoyed it. Lived at the training ground. There was like 2 houses with, must have been 16 lads, and then an old couple lived next door that was supposed to look after us. So it was carnage, but we were such a tight team, and we won the under-17s Premier League that season. Like beat Arsenal, United, City. So yeah, it was really good, and I'm still in touch with a lot of those boys. But then I've always, like I said before, I've always been impatient, and when I got to 18, I'm like, I want to be in the first team and stuff. And Blackburn just signed striker after striker in those days. It's like it was Sutton, Chris Sutton, Kevin Gallagher, and then we had Nathan Blake, then we had Egil Ostenstad, then we had Ashley Ward. There was just one, Matt Jansen, just strikers all the time. And I was very impatient. I used to play in the reserves and score goals, but I wouldn't be getting anywhere. And then Graham Souness came in, and on his first day, we had a sort of a reserve game on the training ground. He came and watched, and I didn't think I played that well, but he absolutely loved me for some reason. Like, got me training with the first team the next day. played me in a couple of games at the end of the season, like got me involved, and it was fantastic. And then I came back for pre-season the next year, feeling really good, thinking, oh, I might get a chance. I was still, I think I was 18, and he just said, look, Ben, you might play a few games, but we need to get, I think we're in the Championship at that stage. He said, we need to get promotion. I'm going to sign some big strikers. I need experienced players, really like you, but you can hang around or you can go on loan. And then Australia, it was Northern Spirit, so they were owned by Glasgow Rangers at the time.
Oh, wow.
So that's why Graham Souness knew it. And he sort of said, well, I said, right, I'll go on loan then. So I don't want to. He said, there's no point you playing reserve football. You don't get anything out of it. It's too unrealistic. So he said, you can either go to Sydney for a year or you can go to Rochdale. So I'm like, see ya. He said when he was younger, he went to America when he was quite young for it. And he said it helped him grow up and mature and everything. And he's he recommended that I did it. He might have just done that to get rid of me for a year, but yeah, he said to do that, and I went, and I absolutely loved it. It was loads of fun. I lived on my own for the first time. I had a flat in Sydney. They got me a car, and I was just at the beach. It was just an amazing lifestyle. Football went really well. I think I got Young Player of the Year in the league, top scorer. So yeah, that side of it was really good. But then I came back from Australia, obviously at the start of the next season. Again, I'm like, what's happening, Gaffer? Am I going to play? And he's like, no, you're not going to play much. You can hang around. And I said, well, no, I want to go on loan. And he said, well, Ben, there's about eight or nine teams for you to choose to go on loan to. So I was like, I didn't have a clue where to go. And then Brentford came in, and Steve Coppell rang me. It was almost like a meat market in those days. When you're in the reserves and you're 18, 19, you'd play a reserve game and there'd just be scouts and managers from the lower leagues there just ready to take you on loan, and like your mate would go and they wouldn't be there the next day because they'd gone on loan somewhere. So we were all going on loan, and I wanted to make sure I went somewhere on loan that I was going to play, somewhere I'd enjoy it. So Steve Coppell rang from Brentford, said, we're playing Wigan on Saturday. Come and meet me in the hotel. We'll have a beer on Friday night and we'll discuss it. So I thought, Steve Coppell, I'm a Man City fan, so yeah, he wasn't my favourite person after leaving after about 20 days. But I went to meet him, and what a guy! He was brilliant, and we had a pint together, and he just said, Ben, you've got a position in my team. It's up to you to lose it, sort of thing. As long as you play well, you're going to play. So I said, yeah, I'll do it. So I signed, and it was brilliant. I gelled with all the players. It was completely different world compared to Blackburn. Like I remember on my first day's training, got there, I trained, did quite well. Like it felt easy because I'd come from Blackburn where the tempo was so high. Did well in training, took my training in the change rooms, took my training kit off, threw it in the middle of the floor, went to get a shower, came back, and someone went, what are you doing? I'm like, what do you mean what am I doing? Went, you need to pick up your training kit and take it home and wash it. I'm like, what? Obviously I had to get used to that at Blackpool, but coming from Blackburn, we had everything done for us. We were pampered. So yeah, he was getting used to little things like that. But the season went really well, scored 18 goals. Steve Coppell, I think he's still one of my favourite ever managers. Very, very intelligent guy. And yeah, I loved it. So yeah, it was good.
I guess as a young player, and I'm sure there'll be some young players who might listen or watch this, Ben, but how important was it for you to go out on loan and experience men's football at that age? Because, as you said, there's some clubs now, even you go to Fleetwood and they've got a £10 million training complex, but actually going out there to a club you don't know, place you don't know, moving potentially or obviously renting somewhere for a year. But how important was that for you in your football development to go out on loan to these clubs?
It was huge, and you see it more and more now. You play in the reserves, and you could score a goal, and you could play amazing, but you know you're not really going to get in the first team. You'd be playing well in the reserves, and then suddenly the first team manager might decide that he wants to play two of his experienced strikers in the reserves to give him a game, and then suddenly you sat on the bench and you think, geez, I've been playing well, like it's just not fair, sort of thing. So yeah, it was huge. And actually fighting for something, and like mentioned before, seeing the fans and it meaning more to people. These are people's jobs and these are people's lives, like fighting for it. And yeah, it was just great. And the lads at Brentford were fantastic. I just living in my friend was at university in London at the same time, so it was just like the lifestyle was brilliant. I went from Australia, that was amazing, to living in London, and it was just at that stage of my career, all I had was success. Like everything that was happening was just going well, and I was scoring goals and being linked to this and that, and it just seemed like this is what my career is always going to be like. I'm going to get on with everyone. The manager's always going to be brilliant. I'm always going to score goals and be happy. But yeah, I took that for granted. But yeah, it's so important, because you see players now and they'll go on loan and they just can't handle it. Players that have been at Man United from 8 years old, I know loads of them, from 8 years old to all the way to 18, and then they think they're world beaters and they go on loan and they just can't handle it. They can't handle the intensity. Reserve football, academy football is very slow, doesn't mean anything. It's all about learning. Suddenly that's stopped. Now you're fighting for something. You're fighting for the fans. You can't let them down. You've got people screaming in your face, the managers, the coaches. It's no softly. The other players are smashing you in training. You suddenly get all these things where you've not encountered before, like the more experienced strikers sulking because I'm here. People saying, "Oh, he's come from Blackburn, blah blah blah." And you just have to get used to it. And so much of football is psychological. If you're not mentally strong, I wouldn't say I'm the most mentally strong, but I'm somebody that I can sort of go into a room and get on with most people. To sort of got that sense of humour, I can make people laugh, which sort of can endear me to people. But I've seen so many people, good players as well, just can't handle it in the changing rooms, and it's sort of sad that that's the way it is. But that's football. I remember when I was 17 and the first time I trained with the first team at Blackburn, I thought I did well. Like I was so excited coming off the training ground, thinking I'm going to ring my mum and tell her I trained with the first team. And Chris Sutton, who was there at the time, just came up to me and went, "You ruined that, didn't you, Ben? Blew your chance there." I'm like, "What do you mean?" He went, "You were terrible, weren't you? You're not going to get another chance." You just think, like, you've won the Premier League. I can't be that much of a threat that you'd need to be horrible to me. And I knew I'd done all right, but it's just those little doubts. And then, but you get that all over football, and there's always those people. There's always unhappy players that will try and make other people's life hell. And football is so much mental. Like people don't realise, because there's so many skillful players out of football, but they just haven't got it mentally to handle the stick, to handle the manager, to the other players. It can be, you sort of get tested, especially when you go somewhere new. It's not quite, I wouldn't say it's quite like prison, but they test you to find you where you are in the pecking order.
Of course,
you'll get things, and then it's just how you respond. And sadly, I've seen so many players just crumble and go away from it, and it is very, like, I can't believe people like Cristiano Ronaldo, Messi, those players at Man United, even as a City fan, when they won the league all the time, they were relentless. Like, it was never enough for them. And to have that every day is just unbelievable mental toughness. And and football is, you see people saying, "Oh, I could have made it, I could have done this, could have done that, I can do this," but it's a lot harder than people think when you get into it.
I'll let Tom ask the question after as we move to Hull, but obviously 2 loan spells out, and then a move to Stockport. I believe it was in the region of £400,000, which was kind of a lot of money back then. Obviously 19 games, 4 goals from what I've researched, and then obviously a loan spell to Oldham, and then to where we'll come on to a bit more is Hull City. But a time in your career where you thought that move was the right one at the time, but maybe when you look back, it wasn't, or is it a different case there?
It was equally as bad as the Notts County one. It was. I still regret that. Graham's. I remember they were really pushing for me. I was happy to go back to Blackburn and just see, because I'd had that good season out on loan, and I know they'd sent people to watch me. Dean Saunders was on the coaching staff, and he used to come and watch me quite a bit, and I knew that they quite liked me. Graham Souness has always been fine with me, and I thought, "Oh, this is my chance." But then Stockport kept ringing, and I remember just before we were going back for pre-season, I think it was the day before, I was just lying in bed and I got a phone call saying, Ben, it was my agent, Stockport County put in a bid of 450 grand. Blackburn have accepted it. I booked your flight to go to Scotland, where Stockport are on a pre-season training to do your medical and stuff. And I was thinking, right, okay. And I spoke to Graham Souness, and Graham Souness was like, look, Ben, I think I could regret selling you. Please don't think you have to go, because I'm quite happy for you to stay. But Stockport are really keen on you. Just be careful with Carlton Palmer. And then I didn't heed that warning, and I went, and it was just, it was just terrible. He's the worst manager I've had some bad managers, but it was just awful. I don't even know why he signed me. He just didn't like me. I didn't like him. We just used to argue all the time, and he
wasn't he just player manager at the time?
Yeah. Oh my goodness, he was absolute tactical genius. One game we were playing someone rubbish at home, and we drew 1-1, but we kicked off at 12. So we came back into the changing room. Everyone's down. Carlton's not in the changing room. So like, where is he? And then he comes in and goes, "It's all right, boys. Everyone else in the league's drawn 0-0." And he'd looked at teletext, before the game starts. And in the old days, he just used to have 0-0 because we'd kicked off at 12. Then we're all like, they haven't even kicked off yet, Carlton. And it's just stuff like that. Like, he'd make 3 substitutions and then go and tell you to warm up. You're like, well, I can't come on. It's impossible. And he'd play himself at sweeper, like you need a sweeper in League One. And he'd be practically level with a goalkeeper. He'd be that far back. And he'd just do stupid things like we weren't allowed to wear jumpers or coats in training in winter. And he'd come out in like a big winter coat, hat on. He just stuff like that. And I didn't like it. I wanted to leave straight away. And he used to say, well, no one wants you, Ben. And I said, well, I think they do. And he'd say, well, no one wants you. You're rubbish. You're no good. You never make as much money as me. I'm like, I'm sure I won't, Carlton, but I just want to leave. And then after every game, we'd lose and stuff. His favourite saying was like, Rome wasn't built in a day. We'd all be like, yeah, but some of the foundations were in. He'd say after the game, he'd go, right, if you don't want to be here, tell me now. And I'd say, I don't want to be here, Carlton. He's like, shut up, you're staying. I'm like, I don't want to be here. So eventually, I managed to get out on loan to Oldham with Ian Dowie. Ian Dowie's a really good guy, actually. He was doing well, but he's another one. Like, you meet these managers and they're completely different. Carlton's training was terrible. Ian Dowie couldn't do enough training. It was 6 o'clock in the swimming pool. Then you were doing boxing, and then you were doing your normal training. Then it was optional training in the afternoon, which everyone went to. And it was just, I think that's why they blew up a little bit, Oldham, towards the end there. And he was a really good guy, really good manager, but he was just doing a little bit too much. I remember my first day with him, I was, we were doing boxing, and you're in threes, and he said, right, Ben, kneel down and just try and cover yourself. I'm like, what do you mean? Ian Dowie on one side, the goalie on the other side, and they had to punch me for a minute while I was kneeling down, and I had to just block for a minute. It was just mental. But it was different. It was fun. It was good. So yeah, I was there, and then Peter Taylor, who was Brighton manager when I was at Brentford, and I played well against. He wanted to sign me for Hull. Oldham didn't have enough money, so he said, "Come to Hull." Carlton tried to stop it a few times, and then finally I managed to get to Hull. And to be honest, I would have gone anywhere. I would have gone to play for anyone to get out of Stockport County. So it just happened to be a fantastic club in Hull.
Yeah, just for those who are watching, Tom's just gone to, I think his AirPods have run out of battery. Preparation is key, even on a podcast, just like football. But I guess, Ben, when we move on to Hull, obviously Blackpool's opponents this weekend, 2003, joined after that loan spell at Oldham. I think it was 70 games, 24 goals from obviously the research we've done, and the first player to score a hat-trick at the KCOM Stadium. Again, a fantastic milestone and achievement for you. And I've just been there on Tuesday to take some pictures and kind of the career hours go down. It's a magnificent stadium and one that deserves a team like that to be a lot higher in the football pyramid.
Yeah, definitely. I think people don't realise how big Hull is. It's like, I think it's the 5th largest city in England. It's absolutely huge, and it's strange in a way because there's just no, apart from Leeds, there's no really decent teams around there. So it's just Hull, like everything's Hull. It's the rugby or it's the football, and they're really into it, really passionate. And I remember they just moved into the stadium when I signed, and Peter Taylor was showing me around, and I knew he was an amazing coach because I think he was doing England at the time as well. And he said, "Look, Ben, we're going to get all these players in. We're going to get promotion next season." So this was just at the end of the season when I signed, and I'm like, "Yeah, okay." Oh, I didn't tell him that I would have gone anywhere, but he, So we decided to sign, and it was just, it's just amazing. From the first, I think it was like my 2nd or 3rd game when I scored. Was it when I scored a hat trick? I think it was the 2nd or 3rd game. Yeah. And it just from there, it was just brilliant. The people of Hull, I've got on really well with them. I played some of my best football, scoring loads of goals. We had a really good team, obviously going for promotion. And then it was the end of that season that I did my knee, and then that was it really. That I just remember that game. I think it was about 3 games to go in the season. We played Huddersfield, and Peter Taylor just said to me before the game, "Oh, Ben, there's a few Premier League teams watching you tonight. Make sure you do well." And then I just had that. Then I did my knee, and obviously, literally from there, it's never been the same. I've never been the same. So yeah, it was. I loved my time at Hull, but in the end, it's sort of it's crippled me, I suppose. Yeah.
In your head, and he talks about the game being quite psychological, and you've got to be quite strong mentally to prepare yourself for games. And you talked about Ronaldo and Messi having that mentality to be better and better every day. I guess when you're injured and that's playing in your mind, potentially that could have ended your career in some respects, if you don't mind me saying. But on the hindsight, you must have had a strong mentality to make sure that you were in rehab and getting fit for that next move, which was ultimately the one to Blackpool.
Yeah, it was. It was a nightmare. They thought it was just a cruciate tear, so I went in for surgery in Hull. And when the guy opened my knee up, he realised it was a lot worse, so he wouldn't do it. He said he couldn't do it. He said, "Oh, I wouldn't be able to get him back playing." So then, I woke up and said, "Right, how did the op go?" And they're like, we couldn't do it. It was too bad. And then it's like, "Oh, well, who's going to do it?" And then loads of people in England wouldn't do it because there's all sorts in there. And then in the end, I had to go to Switzerland to this guy who deals with ski injuries because it was sort of that bad. And he said, "Look, I'll do it," because he was crazy. But he said, "I'll do it, but there's no guarantee you'll be able to play football." And then he did it. And I was in a brace for 4 months, on crutches for 3 months, and it took me a year. And I came back, and it wasn't right. It was still stiff. I still can't straighten my leg. Then I played for a bit, and I actually played in the Championship, scored a few goals, not being able to kick it with my left foot. And I used to hide that. I was just kicking it. I'm left-footed as well, so I got really good with my right foot. But I was playing in the Championship, not being able to kick the ball with my left foot. It's like it was just crazy. But I didn't see that I had any other options. So I wanted to carry on playing football, and I could disguise it to a certain degree. I remember Soccer AM came, and it was the moment I'd been dreading because it was a crossbar challenge, and thinking, I can't kick it with my left foot. Like I don't know what I'm going to do. So I had to pretend I was being cocky and try it with my right foot. Obviously, I missed, but it wasn't too bad an effort. But yeah, it was just little things like that. And a few weeks after that, I did my knee again, another little operation. But it's sort of when I came back from that one, it loosened it a little bit, and it wasn't too bad. So I could at least kick it with my left foot for a bit then. So it was better. But I think in all, I've had 15 operations on my knee. Need a knee operation, knee replacement soon, all those sort of things. But when you're young, you think, what do I need a knee for after football anyway? You just think, I'm going to play football as long as I can. What would I need a knee for when I'm 40? And then, but suddenly when you have kids, you realise, yeah, maybe I do need a knee for stuff. But yeah, I did my knee a few times at Hull, managed to come back, and then Peter Taylor had gone, and Phil Parkinson had come in. He was trying to change a lot of things, which as a manager, you shouldn't do when you're coming into a club that's doing well. And I remember on his first day, him and his fitness coach went up to Nick Barmby, England legend, like Premier League. You shouldn't be stretching like that, Barnes. And it's like, he's a really nice guy, Nick Barmby. So he's like, what do you mean? Like, well, you shouldn't be doing static stretching. You should be doing stretching on the move. So stop that now. And Barnes just going, what? And Phil Barnes used to get us to like try and get the team to play like sort of long ball football. And we'd have loads of games where we'd play his first team against the rest of us. And we beat them all the time because Barnes wasn't playing. And Barnes was used to like sort of drill us and coach us and say, right, we'll pass it round him and stuff. And it used to drive Phil Bargason mad. But yeah, so he just said, Ben, you can go. You can go. I said I wanted to go anyway. And he said, well, Brighton want you, Blackpool want you. And then I think Crystal Palace, Peter Taylor at Crystal Palace said I could go there as well. But I think that was more of a token one from Peter Taylor. So I said, thanks, but no thanks. And yeah, so it was Brighton or Blackpool really in the end. And then ironically, Chris Sutton rang me because he was manager. I can't remember, maybe Lincoln or something. I'm like, no, not after you were so horrible to me.
Yeah. That's called karma.
How the mighty have sunk. Yeah. So yeah, and Simon Grayson was at Blackpool at the time, and I was with Simon at Blackburn in the reserves because he was just coming sort of towards the end of his career. I was just starting mine, and I always got on really well with him. He knew what type of person I was. So he said, "Yep, I want to sign you," and we're building. I remember coming down and like showing me the plans. We're going to build a stadium, and I remember got the first day of training because I knew Keith Southern, and I said, "Keith, what about this building the stadium, like filling it in and stuff?" And he went, "You tell everyone that, Ben." I'm like, "Oh right," but yeah, it was. It was good to get signed, and I remember just sat in Simon Grayson's office trying to get it to go through because it's you don't realise, but it was deadline day, and every move can only happen when a move happens before. It's like like buying a house, but everyone doing it on the same day. So I think Hull wanted to sign Nicky Forster, so they wouldn't sell me until they'd signed Nicky Forster from Reading, and Reading wouldn't sell Nicky Forster till they'd sign someone else. So we were just waiting until the sort of the last minute, and then it was done. But yeah, I managed to get through the medical, but I refused to like in a medical, depending on what club you're at, they can be pretty comprehensive or they can be not much. And the agreement I'd made sort of with Simon Grayson was that I wouldn't be doing a medical. I wouldn't be showing them physio on my left knee. And that was it. So the physio went, right, take your jeans off, and my agent just went, nope. It's like, what do you mean? It's like, no, he's not. You can sign him from what you've seen, or we'll go. And then, so fortunately, we managed to sign. But yeah, I think it worked out. It was really good. At the start, I remember I was sub for the first game against Millwall away, and I'm thinking, what? I said to Simon, like, why have you signed me? Like, I want to play. You know, I'm that impatient. But eventually I got in, didn't start so well, and then started playing better. I think it was Brighton away, where we won 4-1 on TV. And I did my hamstring that game. So then I was out, and there's nothing worse than coming to a new club and being out injured. All you want to do is prove to everyone that you're a decent player. And yeah, it was, but off the pitch, it was, like we were all getting on well. There's so many players. Simon Grayson, I'll always say that he is one of his best attributes is his ability to sign the right players at the right time. Like everyone he signed, you think like Andy Morel, Klaus Jorgensen, Ian Evatt came that season. Simon Gillett did well when he played. Carl Dickinson, and then was it Robbie Williams at the end who was the free kick specialist? Yeah. So yeah, he was really good, and obviously Wes as well, Wes Houlihan. So he's really good at getting the right players in the right time and training. It was very much like the best team spirit I've had is Brentford, Hull, and Blackpool, and it was the same where we were all together all the time. I think clubs lose that when players don't live in the area, and at Blackpool we all sort of lived close by. and it made it easier because all the wives and girlfriends got on well. We'd regularly go out as a massive group, like all the wives and girlfriends with the boys. Sometimes all the girls would go out, sometimes all the boys would go out. It was nice. And when you get that, obviously alcohol's not great for sport, but when you get that sort of camaraderie that you can have a laugh off the pitch, and it's just nice. And then you suddenly, when you stood in the tunnel and you go into battle and you think, yeah, these boys have got my back, or I know he cares. And like sometimes on a night out you'll have an argument with someone and the truth will come out, and it really helps. And those sort of things that people don't always think about. And I know a few managers, I think even Evo said it the other day about his Bolton one, saying how hard it is to be a manager when players can't socialise together, especially a new manager bringing in a lot of players. And when you look at Blackpool, it's going to be like that. You bring 17, 18 players in, you want them to gel, but there's no opportunities for them to gel. So those sort of considerations that people don't always think about. But yeah, Blackpool, it was that core of the team was really good, and we all got on really well.
I think one of the players you said there had a bit of a feisty attitude. It's Klaus Jorgensen. Who would you say, when you first sort of joined, and was your biggest sort of influence and made you feel comfortable? And what was it like being part of that the Perfect 10 sort of season? Because you could see the camaraderie there and the spirit in that team as well.
Yeah, it was. I knew a few of them. I knew Keith Southern from when I was younger, from Everton. I'd played against a lot of them. I knew Scott Vernon from a brief spell at Oldham. But I think when you sign and there's lots of other new ones. Oh yeah, Mark. How could I forget Mark Joseph, MJ? Yeah, I knew him from Hull, so that helped. So he was the one that helped me settle in. I lived with him for a little bit as well. Now our boys are in the same class at school, so. Which is strange. Both football obsessed. So yeah, it's those sort of. It was probably MJ the most, and then you just make new friends. I've always been fortunate in that I can go into a changing room, new places, and sort of get on with people. So yeah, and then I was close with Klaus, Evo. Yeah, we just socialised together. We'd always be together. On the weekend, you'd be doing something with them, and it was just nice. It was easy, and from there, things just got better and better. And for me personally, that season I was injured most of it, and then I sort of came back towards the end on the perfect 10. But it was even like Joe Hart. Remember Joe Hart came?
Yeah.
He didn't even concede a goal in training, let alone game. he was just ridiculous. How we got Joe Hart? It was just. And what a guy he was. He was brilliant. I remember him getting drunk with us on the way back from Swansea on the coach. He was just like one of the other guys. But yeah, it was one of those things. People just came in and they loved playing for us, and they loved sort of the camaraderie we had. And towards the end of that season, you just never felt like we were going to lose. It was just sort of, yeah, we'll get promotion, we'll win. We just got so many good players, so many good strong players, everyone playing well. There was no, it wasn't like Ian Holloway where we were tactically well drilled. It was sort of just we had good players working together, and and a little Wes obviously was a magician. He's just unbelievable. Like he could go around everyone in training twice and score, and then other days he couldn't even kick the ball. But yeah, he was amazing. Wes, really good lad, and obviously he went on to have a fantastic career as well. But yeah, it was a really good season there. For me personally, I didn't play as much as I should have done, but. I had a better season in the first season in the Championship.
Yeah.
Just going to read some of the comments out. You might have seen some on the screen already. I've asked for the favourite perfect 10 moment. So one MB says, I think Scunthorpe at home. I think there was maybe a few sendings off in that game, if I remember rightly. John Aspinall says has to be the Swansea game away from home, which you've alluded to there. And there's a few others saying the same thing, that good point there. Is the day Madeline McCann went missing as well. I think it was all over the newspapers. And Matt Smith says, Swansea away. I thought we were going to get absolutely battered by a mob afterwards, but they applauded us away from the ground out of respect of how well we played. I've noticed you didn't travel in that game and didn't play a game from the 10th of March till the second leg of the playoffs in the 3-1 win over Oldham. Was that down to injury, or just that people keeping out of the team?
It was my knee. Yeah, my knee. It was... it's just unfortunate. That's just the way it is. With my knee, it was literally, I didn't know what it would be like when I woke up. So I could wake up one day and my knee would be fine. I could wake up another day and it could be swollen and I can't even bend it. So yeah, it was that bad, sort of, my knee. And I missed all at the start of my career. Before I did my knee, I'd play 50 odd games a season, never miss training, never miss a game. I hated missing games, and then my knee just literally wouldn't allow it. And then obviously that sort of deteriorated as I came towards the end of my career.
I want to move on. Obviously, Blackpool fans will remember 2 seasons. Most recently, the 2009, 2010, the year, 2009, the year Ian Holloway came in. I guess he was another character that you've come across in football. I remember reading a story about Brett saying he made all the players watch Coach Carter for team bonding. Yeah. I watched it the other day, to be fair, for the first time. I can understand why he got up for it. But that season, away at QPR, first game, you score a goal to obviously give us a point. I think we drew the first 2 games of that season. I think it was Watford and it says QPR on here. I always thought Cardiff was one of those games, but it's not mentioned on here.
No,
I thought Ian Everett scored a good goal that day. But yeah, to start that season off under a new manager, scoring that goal, it must have been a good feeling for you that you know you're going to be part of, well, maybe didn't know at the time, that something special at Blackpool Football Club. Yeah,
it was a strange time because Tony Parks was sort of caretaker manager because Larry had gone to Leeds, and Tony had managed to keep us up. So we all expected Tony to be manager the next season, but then obviously we got Ian Holloway, and no one knew what to expect. And we came in first day of pre-season. First day of pre-season is usually nightmare. It's just run. He got us all to come to Bloomfield Road. We went upstairs into the big room upstairs, and he just sat down and he talked to us for about 2 hours. Like, oh my God, this guy but he doesn't feel like 2 hours. You know, when you say someone's talked to you for 2 hours, you think, oh, that'll be boring. But just like you just half of it, you're in disbelief at what he's saying, but he just captivates you, and he's just amazing. Just different than anyone I've seen, sort of any other manager I've seen. There's probably only Martin Allen that's madder than him, but yeah, he's a lot more intelligent than people give him credit for. He sort of said, right, I've been off football for a year. His enthusiasm, like you could see, he was like just itching to get back to it. It's like, I've been off football for a year and I've been watching Barcelona a lot, so we're going to play like this. And he just came up with his system, and he's talking about, right, so the fullbacks are going to push on, and it's like everyone plays now, really. Like Man City play, like all those teams play. It's what they do now, but he was doing it, 10 years ago, was it? Mm-hmm. So yeah, he said, right, so the fullbacks are going to push on, the centre halves are going to split to receive the ball, centre midfield is going to come and get it from the goalkeeper, or 3 attacking players are just going to stay up front, and we're all just like, has he seen us play before? And he's going, we're going to get in the playoffs this year. And I'm like, we only just avoided relegation. So we started training. I remember as a striker, it was brilliant because the first few training sessions, he was just working on the defence, passing it out from the back, getting it from the goalie. And because our defence are just used to getting it and just pretty much getting rid of it, as a striker, we just kept tackling them and scoring in training. So we looked really good. But the thing is, when there's ever any change in anything, any walk of life, people only believe in it if they get success. And I think very fortunately we were unbeaten in that pre-season, and you start to think maybe he's not as mad as we thought. Maybe he's actually got something here. And suddenly you've got players that wouldn't necessarily have taken the risk suddenly looking world beaters on the ball. Like Evo's fantastic on the ball, like his range of passing, his touch, excellent. All those sort of players, and they just grew into it. And I think Baps was the biggest one that just, he really took it on, and he was fantastic. And he just had the team perfectly, and it's probably the most well drilled I've ever been in a team, in the way that we used to in training, which it can get tedious. Players don't really like it, but you don't realise how good it is for you till afterwards. That we'd do team shape, which just 11. He'd have 11 players that were probably starting on the Saturday, and then stood behind them on a pitch. He'd have the other 11, and he'd just play out from the back. He'd get the goalkeeper, so you'd be playing unopposed. Like one 11 would play for a few minutes, then the next 11 would play, and he'd stop it constantly. So say if Stephen Craney had the ball at left back, he'd stop it, and he'd look all the way around the pitch and say, right, where should you be if you're the right winger? So he'd make sure whoever had the ball, everyone else knew what position they should be in at every opportunity. He'd stop it constantly. And as a footballer, all you want to do is just, right, let us play. But we were so well drilled. And then those players would stop. The next 11 would go in, and you'd play in different positions. And at the time, you don't really realise. You just go through it. But then you suddenly see it didn't really matter who got injured. Someone would just come in and play in that position, and you'd find yourself you'd learn a bit more about the game as well, because you'd know where such and such a body should be at a certain time. And he sort of evolved his formation. He had his idea, but he sort of let it evolve a little bit, and he changed things here and there. But yeah, it was amazing. We all bought into it because we were getting success, and we were so well drilled. Like, everyone knew where everyone should be, and we should never have got promotion from that division with the players we had, really. Obviously, some players really grew that season, went on to be fantastic. But at the start of that season, we would have been favourites for relegation, and we just couldn't be stopped, really. It was that belief in ourselves. And what I loved about playing for Blackpool, especially in the Championship, was going to those teams that had, like, Birmingham and places like that, that thought they were brilliant, and they'd always try and belittle us, and then we'd just beat them away from home, and you just see that sea of tangerine in the away end, and you'd be at this massive stadium, and it's just our boys celebrating. I used to love that. I used to like being the underdog was fantastic, and yeah, that season was just unreal. Little things that Ian Holloway would do, like you say, watch Coach Carter. One time we'd just turn up at training. You didn't know what we were doing. Sometimes we'd just go to the cafe, have a bacon butty. Sometimes we'd just go walk on the beach. He hired the sandcastle one time, which was brilliant. I love the sandcastle. It's like my favourite place. So he hired that just for us, and we're just running around like kids on a Friday before a game. It's just little things, and it just makes you relax. Takes the pressure off you. He'd love a meeting. He loved a meeting, just talking about anything. Once you got him going, he just wouldn't stop. But I remember in pre-season, in training, after about a week, we were walking back in after training. He just said to me, "You're a good player, you aren't you, Ben? You're a lot better than I thought you were." I'm like, "Oh, cheers, Gaffer, thanks." But yeah, he knew the right things to say to people, and he was really good for me because he understood about my knee. And at that stage, if I played on a Saturday, I struggled to walk until Monday. I couldn't run till maybe Tuesday, Wednesday. So what I was doing at that stage was I'd play Saturday, and then I'd just be in the swimming pool, the gym, until Thursday, and then I'd train Thursday, Friday, play Saturday, and it'd just be like that. And if you look at that season, a lot of the times I wouldn't play on if I played on a Saturday, I wouldn't be in the squad, or I wouldn't start on the Tuesday, because my knee just couldn't handle it. It'd just stiffen up. It'd swell so much. There were times where I'd be icing my knee before training, so I couldn't feel it. I was on so many painkillers and stuff. It was just ridiculous. But you just do it. But Ian Holloway was really good to me in that he understood that, and he just let me sort of play and just train a little bit, and it really helped me that season.
Go on, Tom. I thought you'd. Yeah, sorry. I think Tom's got a question for you.
No, it's more of a comment, really. Like, you speak and just sort of you encapsulated us into sort of maybe what Holloway was doing with you guys. And first and foremost, I think it was like a privilege to watch what you guys produced. And like you said, I remember one time coming off the bench, we had sort of Callum McManaman, Tom Ince, and Matt Phillips come off the bench. And like you were saying, that any person could play in any position, and he wanted to breed that mentality through. And us as fans, it was an utter privilege watching it and watching that midfield like pressure and stuff, and like Man City do now. And we, as you can imagine, we're in a world of our own watching football being played like that, and even to dream to be in the playoffs. You were mentioning when he first signed, he said we can get in the playoffs, and I think he said on Sky Sports, there's no reason why we can't get promotion. And I think all the Blackpool fans just sat in their seats like,
what?
And I don't think in our lifetimes we would ever thought we'd got into the Premier League, and watching the football at the Championship and even the season after the Premier League, he really did bring something special to us, and it's good to hear from the players how special it actually meant to you. I think one of my favourite moments is at Derby away when Ormerod scored 2. Didn't he do the team talk with some teddy bears?
Oh yeah. It was like New Year's Day, and we turned up at the team hotel, and he's got. He bought 11 teddies and he'd lined them up saying, "This is how Derby are going to play." So we were looking at it and he went, "This is savage." And he just got this teddy that he thought was savage, and he just started throwing him around the room going, "This is what Savage is going to do today. He's going to run there, he's going to run here, he's going to run there." And it just relaxes you a little bit. He used to do like a dance off with a kit man, before a game, all these sort of things. But he was just, but you look at the gaff, I still call him the gaffer. He's still on our WhatsApp group. We've still got a WhatsApp group for him. But you look at his career after Blackpool, and he's not had that success. And you have to have the right club at the right time, as whether you're a player, you're a manager. Look, DJ Campbell, perfect example. He was amazing for us, not quite anywhere else. And the right club at the right time, and it can really help him. We were very fortunate to have him. I think he was an amazing guy. And I remember we lost to Crystal Palace away 4-1, probably mid part of that season or towards the end. And we got back on the coach heading back to London, and we're all like, heading back home, sorry. We're all like, like in a really bad mood. Everyone's saying, "Oh, we should have done this, should have done that, or I should have played," and all that. And he just stopped the coach on the high street in the middle of London. As you know what it's like in London. We've probably got a massive bus lane fine. And he just went, we're like, "What is he doing?" And he just went to this little off license, got loads of beer, loads of crisps and stuff, brought them on and said, "Don't worry, boys, everything will be fine." And from that, instead of us going home and feeling down and stuff, you suddenly have a few beers, everyone's happy, and you're talking, you're thinking, "He's good, the gaffer, like, I like him." It's just little things like that. And suddenly you then go into training on Monday a little bit happier, instead of after a defeat, you got battered and you're thinking, "Oh God," but you're just smiling. And it's just little things like that. He was an amazing guy, and he knew how to get the best out of everyone. And he was good to me. So yeah, I've got a lot of respect for him.
We've got loads of questions coming. I don't know how long you've got left, Ben. I don't know. You said you've got a family quiz. So if you need
to we'll keep going. This is better than a family quiz. Go on.
If you come knocking in the background, we know who it is.
Yeah.
One question before we kind of move on towards maybe some games that turn the season and made you believe. A good question, which has got a few comments, is what was Hammer Buatsa like to play for? Again, another character you've probably come across in football, but a player who had so much ability that maybe it was his attitude that was wrong in terms of where he could have got to in the game.
Yeah, he was amazing. Like, again, he's one of those players that shouldn't have been at Blackpool, because he had he was at was he at Watford first? Yeah, at Watford. He was very good. Like, he's ability wise amazing, but you see a lot of those players that sort of flit in and out of games, and he did produce some amazing things, but he was a nice guy. He just didn't. As you go up the leagues, what tends to happen is you don't always get that team spirit where everyone lives close and everyone's together all the time. And Hammer would be one of those ones that wouldn't always be with us and things, but he always got on well with everyone. It's more frustrating that he didn't always make the most of his ability. Another one is J. Emmanuel Thomas. I don't know whether you remember him, the lad we had from Arsenal. Mm-hmm. He had everything. I don't think I've seen a player with everything like him. I remember in training, if he wanted to, he'd just brush like even Craney off. Craney's like a dog in training. Like he'd just brush him off. He'd brush Evo off. He could go around anyone. He's quick. He could score. And then you think, "Oh my God, how have we got this guy on loan?" And he went into a game and you think, "Oh, right, is that it?" And he just wasn't interested. If things didn't go as well. And then you got someone, I remember we signed Seamus Coleman, towards the end of the season, didn't we? And he came into training on the Friday, I think. And we didn't even know who he was, just a little Irish guy. And he wasn't the best in training, to say the least. And we thought, oh, right, okay. And then he started, I think, at Scunthorpe away. And he set 2 goals up and he was amazing. And sometimes you get those players that are just brilliant in games. And he was, again, Holloway, fantastic signing, perfect for us. He launched Seamus Coleman's career, didn't he? And he was probably always going to be an amazing player, Seamus. But he was such a nice lad, such a down-to-earth boy. But yeah, he got the right move at the right time to come to us on loan, and it really helped him. But he bought into everything that we were doing, and yeah, Blackpool have had some fantastic players over the years, and Ian Holloway loves signing forward players, that's for sure. So yeah, there was always someone coming in.
I think you actually scored on Seamus Coleman's debut. I think it was the Palace game at home with the new Armfield stand was introduced. I don't think he had the best first half. We're like, oh my god, where's it? Like, I think Eardley, where's he? Was it 2-0 down or something?
Yeah, and, I think I was sub that game. I think I came on at half time
and scored in the 89th minute to save us on that momentous day for the club. So thank you, Ben.
And Charlie scored as well, didn't he? Yeah.
But I'll come to some comments leading towards the playoff final, so we'll try and get to that quite quickly. But was there a game in that season, whether it was a game that turned it and made you think we could go to the playoffs or go up? But you look at the Swansea 5-1 at home, the Watford 3-2, which, again, how we didn't win that by more. I think the highlights were on the Twitter page of the day. But was there a game for you that's thought, oh my God, we're actually going to do this now? We're actually going to go to win the playoffs, or we're going to go up automatically?
I think we talk about it because at the start of the season, when you do your win bonuses for the season, you usually have the captain and some of the senior players would go in to discuss it with the management and the owners, and you'd come up with a win bonus. And the win bonuses, I don't know whether you know, they use different clubs, different things, but they're usually based on where you are in the league. So say if you're you're in position 1 or 2, you might get, I don't know, £150 per point while you're in those positions. If you're in position 3 to 6, you might get £100 per point. If you're below that, you'll just get, I don't know, £50 a point or whatever. It's different at every club. So, I think who was captain then?
Jason Ewell and Charlie.
Yeah, Jason Ewell, Charlie. I think Keith Southern went in because he's tight with money. They went in to discuss it, and they came out and they went, right, boys, the gaffer says that we should say we don't want any bonuses all season and just take 5 million if we get promoted. And we're like, yeah, good. And really, what's the win bonus? And like, no, that's what the gaffer thinks we should do. So everyone's thinking, we hadn't played a game by this stage. Everyone's thinking, well, that just means a season without win bonuses. And then, but the gaffer did this big speech about, right, it doesn't matter about bonuses, but I can guarantee you're going to get that 5 million. And we're like, you can't guarantee that, gaffer. It's not going to happen. And you sort of just forgot about it and thought, we're enjoying ourselves anyway. But as the season went on, we'd make the odd joke like, oh, we're going to be rich, we're going to do this. And then it was, we had a bit of a bad spell. I think we lost to Newcastle. Went on a bit of a bad run. But then it was the Swansea game. That was huge because they were playing really well. They were always played good football. But we absolutely battered them. I remember Ashley Williams was centre half that day. And he just looked shell-shocked. They couldn't get near us. And was it 5-1?
5-1.
Yeah, 5-1. And that, I think that sort of changed it for us. Thought, right, we're going to do this. And then again, you had the same feeling as when we did the 10 in a row, where you just go into each game thinking we're going to win this. Like, it doesn't matter who we play. We're so well drilled. We know exactly what we're doing, and we're going to win this. We just carried on rolling on, and we were never had anything to lose. We always like unfavoured. No one ever thought we'd get promotion. So yeah, it was just brilliant.
I want to come on to the playoff games. You talked about the run in there, the Swansea 5-1, 2-0 away at Plymouth, 4-2 at Scunthorpe, and Soccer Bases, I think, giving you a goal or something. I don't know. I thought it was an own goal. And then Newcastle 4-1 away, and you think, oh, we've been hit by the champions here. Bristol City, the final game of that season, the nerves, and Is it not on? Oh, sorry. I'm looking at your games played for Blackpool, not Blackpool's fixtures. I was thinking of the Peterborough game. Obviously, that game comes along, and fans start to believe that the fans stay for an hour behind after full time to sing players' names, and what an afternoon that was. But that Bristol City game, and then going to the 2 playoff games, just what was it like inside the dressing room on that occasion? Because, like you said, you could be 90 minutes away from getting in the playoffs, or you could be 90 minutes from missing out and the season being wasted. And I just said no £5 million bonus. But what was it like in that run of games up to that final against Cardiff?
We never, because no one ever expected anything, and we just sort of, we didn't feel any pressure. The gaffer would be relaxed, he'd make us laugh. We just felt so confident in each other. We were never paralyzed by fear, because the gaffer would just tell us to go out and play and you'll be fine, just keep going. And we never really doubted it. I know Bristol City got a bit tense, wasn't it? It was 1-1. And I think did Swansea draw that day? Lee Trundle missed loads. I think they needed to win to go up. But yeah, so it just felt right. And then we were quite happy to get Notts Forest, and we beat them 2-1 at home. And I remember little Billy Davis, angry little man in the tunnel, just saying, "All right, it's all right, boys. We'll beat them when we." Well, that's a good result for us, because we'll beat them at home. You know we will, in the tunnel. And we're just looking at him. He was quite happy with 2-1 defeat. He thought they'd batter us at the City ground, and then it wasn't. It obviously wasn't to be. And those celebrations were amazing on the pitch, and the gaffer with the traffic cone hat on. Yeah, it was unreal. And then you think, my God, we're going to the playoff final, like the big one, the biggest. We always used to say the biggest game in world football. The most expensive one is the £90 million game or whatever it was. But again, we didn't feel that much pressure. We were just enjoying it, and we fully expected to beat Cardiff in the final. I think there was no. We never sort of doubted ourselves. Just remember on the coach that day, just the sea of tangerine. I don't know. It's just what I noticed, but just all you could see was tangerine. There was barely any Cardiff fans, and it was just amazing. I remember it was like a dream going there, and then you go into the stadium and just tangerine everywhere. It was just amazing, and yeah, and I remember the gaffer did a speech before the game, and I'm not usually one to get too excited with these things, but proper give me like goosebumps. He was sort of big motivational speech, but he was sort of saying, you are going to face adversity today. You may go behind, but you will come back. You will win. And then lo and behold, we went behind. He'd always said, don't panic. We will just carry on doing what we do. That's all that matters. And then we just, as you can see, in the game, no one panicked when we went behind. They were a really good side, Cardiff, and obviously they went up a year or two later. But yeah, they had some amazing players, but we fully deserved it that day, and it was just amazing. It was just unreal time for Blackpool. It was amazing to see the fans still talk about that day at Wembley. I think everyone was there. Anyone I speaking to was there.
We had the anniversary on YouTube. They streamed the match live, and all the fans got excited on Twitter just as they did on the day. And for me, obviously being at sort of the games in the running and stuff, and just even at full time, despite Holloway probably thinking and you guys thinking you can do it, it still probably took about 2 days to say Blackpool in the Premier League. But when we watched the game back on the anniversary, I for one didn't actually realise how well we played that day. I don't know if you've ever watched it back and actually noticed, but we were absolutely sensational. It was steaming hot, and we just ran, and it probably just summed up what Blackpool were all about during that season.
Yeah, it definitely did, and we played amazing football. It's just sort of beyond the times really, and the league just couldn't handle it. And fair play to Holloway. He's very brave. He'd been out of the game for a year. He came to Blackpool, and he wasn't playing it safe. He sort of went for it, and you got to respect him for that. And it certainly paid off for him. And the boys absolutely loved him. The boys still absolutely love him. He's just one of those characters that sort of leaves an impression on you when you meet him.
Just got a question here from my dad who's watching in the other room, as you do on a Friday night. He said, we were all willing Ben to score at Wembley. Could you imagine the Birdman times 30,000? I think Craney puts the ball over the top, doesn't he, if I remember rightly?
And
you and DJ are 1-on-1 and you were a little bit greedy and went for glory when it could have been finished. But what again, just that would have been such a great moment. But the whole day was a fantastic occasion, as you have alluded to. And those memories that no one can take away from you, Ben, isn't it? And as you said, it'll be there until like death, if you don't mind me saying, but it's something you'll remember forever.
Yeah, it was just. I remember the final whistle went, and the first thing I thought was, Jesus, my mouth's dry. It was so hot. I remember getting a bottle of water, but then like all the boys are just hugging and just looking up, and then trying to find your family in the which isn't easy at Wembley. It is in most games, but. Trying to find like a wife and my sister and my kids and stuff. It was just amazing, just unreal. It didn't seem real. No one outside of Blackpool expected us to do it, and it was just it was like a dream, but fully deserved.
What this is probably a really obvious thing to say, but what was the atmosphere actually like? Especially sort of Dave Jackson's just brought up in there when Chopra scores. What impact did we have as fans during that match? Did it really sort of G you up, or was it one of those ones where you were just so focused on the game you sort of didn't take notice?
I think we were focused anyway, but the fans were amazing. Like that's. From the minute we were driving to the ground, it's just all you could see was Tangerine. All you could hear in the stadium, you didn't hear the Cardiff fans really. And they're a massive club, massive place. But yeah, it was, and the fans are just fantastic, and everyone played the part. I think because, like you say, because we were playing the sort of football that you wouldn't expect, we didn't get to that position being boring and shutting up shop and things, and the fans were just incredible, and the noise, and it drives you on. It gives everyone that little bit extra, and it just felt right. And yeah, the fans play a huge part in what happens, and that's what's so sad about football at the moment.
Yeah.
Just talking about that, obviously you played with huge amounts of crowd, should we say, over your football career. But how have you adjusted to football, watching it now on the TV? I know you've been to a few games, watching it or covering it for radio, but how have you adjusted watching football in the current climate?
It's strange. It's not quite the same, but I'm still going to watch it because it's still football. It's not how we want it to be, but I think it's definitely better with the fake crowd noise, as crazy as that sounds. I remember when Germany were the first league to start again, weren't they? I remember watching those, and it was awful. It was just like a reserve game or something where there's just, you could hear the players shout and things. So yeah, it is strange. It's not right, but at least we've got football, I suppose. That's the only way we've got to look at it. My little boy's just started playing for Blackburn, and I'm not allowed to watch him in training or his games at all. So yeah, it's hard. It is very hard at the moment, but I suppose football, at least it's still on. We've got to understand why the fans aren't allowed in.
Obviously, we won't keep you too much longer, so we appreciate having you on the show and not doing a family quiz. But obviously, your Blackpool career came to an end after the playoff final. I guess in some respects it was a good high to leave on. I know you would have maybe wanted to play in the Premier League for Blackpool, but for you, was that a kind of a good moment to leave on?
Probably, I suppose. Yeah, it's as high as I was going to go. I think. From the time I did my knee when I was 21 at Hull, I always had in my head that I'm going to be finished at the end of this season. It's like even that playoff final day, I was only sub, but I was so nervous about waking up that morning, wondering whether my knee was going to be swollen. And it just, I had in my head that I might retire from the whole game at the end of the season anyway. And it was getting to the point where I didn't enjoy the pain. It was just too much. I had to ice my knees all the time, like 4 ice packs after every game. Couldn't walk, and just it was getting too much, especially after Blackpool as well. And it was nice to finish on a high. Obviously, would have been great to stay, if all things considered. But it was just it's one of those things. But yeah, I suppose when you look at it, it was a nice way to finish.
Perfect.
We've got some questions based on sort of your first, worst, best, and last sort of moments in your career. Could you? I'll start us off with what was your favourite or best goals in your career? For me, it was the volley at Charlton, which was an absolute sensational strike. But what favourite goals or what best goals can you remember?
I like that Charlton one, mainly because it was against Nicky Weaver. And I spent years shouting Weaver as a City fan. So yeah, it was nice. And it was with my right foot. That was a good one. I scored one for Brentford against Brighton on TV. That was like a sort of an overhead kick. So I like that one. I remember one that sort of helped my career a little bit at Blackpool. It wasn't a particularly great goal, but we were playing QPR at home and it was 0-0. And I scored in about the 90th minute, a header. I just little things like that. It wasn't a great goal, but it was the winner. And it sort of helped my sort of confidence and things like that. But yeah, technically my best ones, I like the Doncaster one. The Charlton one. Yeah, and then the one for Brentford, I would say. I also did a few kick-ups and then scored an overhead kick for Hull. That was before my knee. So yeah, I'd say any of those. Yeah. A
lot of the fans are saying sort of Doncaster. You touched upon Jet earlier, J. Emmanuel Thomas. I remember that game. He scored that absolute worldie when he went in between two players and then bent it in. That was a good game. That was. We conceded late on to draw, but yeah, a very good game. You mentioned sort of earlier Holloway, probably the best manager you've ever had. We probably know the worst chairman you've ever had, but probably can you confirm that for us?
I'd say Holloway and Holloway, Peter Taylor and Steve Coppell. I think for different reasons. Peter Taylor was the best coach I've ever had. His coaching sessions were so good. But he'd lose his head a little bit on the man management side of things. Whereas Holloway is just, was so well drilled. So probably Holloway was the best. Sorry, what was the other question? Oh, the worst chairman.
Yeah, the worst chairman, but can you confirm for the
full name, please?
Full name, slowly.
wasn't the most popular of guys, was he? Yeah, it's at least the club's moving in a different direction, though.
Of course, yeah. Favorite team you've played for?
Ooh.
You can say anyone other than Blackpool.
It would be Blackpool or Hull, because they're the ones I had the most success and the best times, and it comes from that sort of team spirit and just everything about it. Yeah, it would be Hull or Blackpool. Yeah.
I've got one here just for one of the fans that have gotten. You might have answered it a little bit, but Josh gets a question in. Your best moment in a Blackpool shirt, Ben?
As a team would be that moment at Wembley when we went up. I think it was just unreal. That achievement. Hopefully it will be matched again one day. But it was just amazing, and no one expected it, and sort of against all the odds. It was I'd say that's going to be the biggest achievement for most people who've worn a Blackpool shirt, I'd say.
Another one here from Ollie Vlogs. I'm guessing he means Blackpool FC, but have you been back to Blackpool since leaving in 2010?
Yeah, I do quite a lot of the radio, and I remember my daughter plays for Blackpool Girls as well. So yeah, but I remember the first game back when all the fans came back after the Oystons left, and I managed to get tickets for that for my wife and my two children, and I remember we were sat there, and it was brilliant. We were singing the whole game. It was fantastic. It was not the best game at all, but it was just good. It felt like the old times, all the fans back, and so I try and go down. I take my children when I can do. It's nice for my children to see what real football is like and not just watch Man City all the time.
Go on, Tom.
No, so we've got a couple of questions before we sort of finish, but we've raised a good point here that without you, we might not have ever seen, or we wouldn't have seen the Wes Houlihan penalty, because you won us the penalty away at Preston, didn't you?
Yeah, that was the first race I've ever won since that knee operation. The crazy thing is, I see Yule all the time, Yule Mwenni, because he lives near me and his kids are at the same school as my kids, and he's the nicest guy actually, Yule, for a Preston player. But yeah, it was. I think it was the slowest race in the world. All the other boys were saying that. But yeah, it was good. That game was probably my second favourite moment in a Blackpool shirt. It was brilliant. The fans again. It was just.
Yeah.
I used to love those games against Preston. Just the songs. It used to make me laugh hearing the songs from both sides, and it was. But yeah, it was absolutely lashing it down that day, and we were much the better team. We should have, but again, no one expected us to win. Everyone thought they were going to win, but we were much the better team. And then, I managed to get the penalty, and little Wes had missed the last penalty taken, so no one. But the type of guy is just chipped it down the middle. It's like, brilliant, Wes, brilliant. But yeah, it was really good. It was an amazing game, and I remember stood out on the pitch celebrating afterwards with all the fans. It was good.
I've got a few here. Ewan, who's watching it, thank you, Ewan. He says, who was the favourite player to play with or against in your football career?
My favourite player to play with. That's a good one. I had a really good partnership with Danny Allsop at Hull. We scored a lot of goals. It's a tough one, this. I used to like playing up front with Brett. Actually, I used to like it when it was me, Brett, and Fletch. I thought you used to think that worked quite well.
Would Charlie be up there in terms of how he would change a game? I know maybe played with him for just over a season.
Charlie, ability-wise, was fantastic. He his left foot was just ridiculous. He could hit it from anywhere, and his confidence as well. And he grew under Holloway. He was a good player before, but he sort of matured. He was a completely different player by the end of that season, and obviously he got moved to Liverpool, didn't he? Eventually, so yeah, he was obviously an excellent player. And for the way we played, we needed someone like Charlie to switch play. So a big thing Holloway would do was to get the ball to Charlie, and then Charlie hit the diagonal to the other side of the pitch where our winger was always told to stay out wide, whereas the other team would get sucked in. Charlie'd have that ability to hit the long diagonals, and it was a big feature of the way we played. Evo also very good at that as well. So yeah, he had a huge impact, Charlie. Yeah, and he'd drive forward and sort of really push the team on. But also, I don't think Charlie would have been able to do that without David Vaughan and Keith Southern. I think especially Vaughan, he doesn't always get the credit because he's the quietest man in the world, but he's fantastic. You could give him the ball anywhere. He's a bit like David Silva in that way. You give him the ball anywhere, and he keeps it, passes it, and he's sort of very, very important to how we played.
I've got one comment here saying the favourite player you wouldn't have played with wouldn't be Chris Sutton, so I'm definitely marking off the list there. Yeah. I've just lost the comment now, actually, which is very annoying. Oh, here we go. You'll see it on the screen. Ben, did you get that promotion bonus?
Yeah, I got it eventually. Yeah, it was a lot of people worried about that. Yeah, I had to drive back from Nottingham to pick it up. It was a good check to take that. I took it to the bank the next day in Nottingham. The woman's like, "What? Are you sure?" I'm like, "Yeah." So yeah, I did get it eventually. Yeah.
We're going to the final topic now. So if fans want to leave their predictions in, I think we've asked Ben before, but we'll get another one because it's been definitely over an hour since we might have heard that one. But between the two sides, Ben, they've played I think 102 times. Blackpool have won 33 of those. There's been 29 draws, 40 wins for Hull. Again, I probably asked you this one before, but how do you see this one going? And give us a score prediction, please.
2-1 to Blackpool. Gary Medine to score at least one.
The goal machine. That'll be fans will love that one. Tom, I'll come to you before we read some of the fans' comments out. What are your predictions on the game tomorrow?
I'm going to guess my first loss of the season. I think we'll play well, but we won't score enough. So I'm going to go for a 2-1 home victory. And Medine to get our goal. I agree with Ben on that one. Is in some good form. That, anything can change. It's just my thoughts initially.
We've got a few of the fans' comments in. Steve reckons it's going to be a 2-2 draw tomorrow as the Blackpool travel across the Pennines to Hull. Not a bad journey, actually, when the motorways are quiet. David Jackson, he says a draw, a 1-1 draw. I used to be careful reading this name out. Fat Goat Sack. He says 3-1 to Blackpool.
Testing you there.
Interesting, yeah. Broadcast it. Definitely need to check those spellings. Henry... comments are flying in, to be fair. Henry, he says 2-2. Quite a few going for a draw. Just one here. Gary saying, cheers, Birdman. Looking forward to my team playing your younger daughter's team again. So it must have come up against you. Up the pool, John Aspinall says 1-1. Gareth says Hull 2, Blackpool 4. Tim Fielding says the goal machine, as Lee Charles TV always shouts out, will score tomorrow. Richard, 1-1. I'm going to go for a 2-2. I think it'll be end-to-end game. There'll be plenty of goals in it. Johnny Burke says 3-1 to Hull. Yeah, you're not invited back, Johnny. Ray says 2-1 to Blackpool. Tim 2-2. And Lee says 1-0 to Pool. And a great listen tonight. Cheers for all. So we're going to call it there. We're hitting the hour and a half. And Ben, we could probably chat for midnight about players and your time at Blackpool and everything else. But I'm sure myself and everyone listening, whether after the podcast tonight or tonight, has enjoyed your company. So from all of us, all Blackpool fans, we appreciate you coming on and we hope you've enjoyed it. Yeah,
thanks for having me. Stay safe, everyone.
Stay safe and make sure those kids don't do too much trouble on Zoom calls in the next few months. Yeah. But Tom, again, thank you for coming on. It's been great as ever.
Thank you so much. It's been a quality evening. Thanks again, Ben.
No worries. And with a few more, just to Mick finishing off. I love BBB. What a legend. Brilliant listen tonight. I'll send Ben a Valentine's card. So Ben, you've got a +1 Valentine's card in a month's time.
Excellent news.
But like I said, that's all. Join us tomorrow, the Seasiders podcast, for a match reaction after the Hull game. Fingers crossed Blackpool can go and pick up all 3 points at the KCOM Stadium. But from me and for everyone else, thank you for listening. And as we always say, 1, 2, 3, up the pool.
Up the pool.
Up the pool.